Good evening, everyone. My name is Kanushri. I'm excited you're here for Publish Before You Graduate, a student's guide to research and journals. If you're curious about doing real research in high school and maybe even publishing it, you're in exactly right place. Tonight is for students, parents, and mentors who want a clear blueprint, how to pick a question, find guidance, do ethical research, and turn that work onto something tangible, a paper, a poster, a publication. Today, we will look at aspects like understanding basics of research, what research really is, why it matters in high school, and structuring the research paper, how to find a mentor, write using the IMRAT model, set timelines, and outputs. Follow ethical practices, where to publish, examples of legitimate journals, and common mistakes to avoid. All of this with an understanding how it matters in admissions. Beyond admissions, research builds the skills colleges and careers value most: curiosity, critical thinking, writing, and resilience. Publishing is a nice outcome. But the real win is learning to ask better questions and communicate clear answers. A few quick notes so we run smoothly. Please keep cameras off and mics muted unless we invite you to unmute. Drop questions anytime in the chat. We'll pick them up during transitions and Q&A segment. If you hit any tech issues, note them in the chat with tech and we'll help. All right. Before we move on to the detailed aspects of research, let me introduce you to the organization hosting the webinar today, Let's Unbound. Let's Unbound began with a focus on skill building, empowering elementary and middle school students with STEM, life skills, and mentorship. As these students progressed to high school, they started seeking college admissions guidance, and we listened. We evolved our services to seamlessly integrate storytelling through applications into our already well-established mentoring programs. By combining personalized learning, skill development, and strategic admission support, we now guide students from their early academic years to top global universities. Today, we have impacted 4,000 plus students across 25 plus countries, delivering over 125,000 hours of expert mentoring. Our commitment to excellence has earned us a 4.9 out of 5 global rating. We are proud to be powered by STEM.org and partnered with Harvard Student Agencies and Arizona State University Prep Digital, ensuring that students receive a world-class educational experience. At Let's Unbound, we don't just prepare students for exams, we prepare them for life. All right, before we dive deeper into our today's session, let me take a moment to introduce the two co-founders behind this movement, individuals driven by purpose, experience, and a shared passion for transforming education. On your left, we have Amol Patil, a serious entrepreneur and an education visionary. With experience at Tata, India's largest school edtech platforms, Amol has helped scale impactful education solutions across 2,000 plus schools in 6 countries, impacting over 250,000 students. He is known for his ability to blend business thinking with on-ground school realities and has been instrumental in helping startups from IIT Bombay and beyond succeed in the education space. His belief: life skills by 18, goals by 35, to nurture not just good students, but well-rounded lifelong learners. Now, on the right, we have Professor Nishant Chawla, a mentor, educator, and the brains behind many of the learning pathways we'll share today. With 14 plus years experience across academia and industry, he has counseled over 1,000 students and designed curriculum solutions to K-12 to executive MBA programs. He is an alumnus of SP Jain, a top-rated teacher, and a proud mentor of change under the Atal Innovation Mission. NITI Ayog. Nishant's philosophy: let students choose their path and become the best version of themselves. Together, their combined experience and vision have shaped the approach we bring to college counseling: personalized, practical, and future ready. Also, now introducing you to the speaker of the presentation, our host is Sunitra Bhatla, a scientist and industry leader with 15 plus years across genomics and biotechnology in both the US and India. She's held strategic roles in cancer and transplant diagnostics at organization you'll recognize on this slide. Genomic Health Agilent and Thermo Fisher Scientific. Sunitra is also the founding partner at Genetic Data Dynamics, where she focuses on advancing personalized genetics, turning complex science into real world impact. Academically, she is a molecular biology graduate from Miami University, USA, with specialized training in biotechnology and microbiology. What I love most is how she brings the depth back to education, mentoring students globally at Let's Unbound and shaping the next generation of creators. You're in expert's hand today. Join me in welcoming Sunitra Bhatla. Before I hand over to Sunitra, I'll run you guys through the session roadmap and feel free to drop questions in the chat as we go. All right, so let's dive into today's session about understanding the basics of research. So over to you, Sunitra. Okay, before that, I would like to cover just one more thing. Sunitra will kickstart the presentation with understanding basics of research. We'll clarify what research actually is, why it matters in high school, the kinds of projects you can take on, and simple ways to start. So structuring the research paper, how to find a mentor, write using the IMRAD model, set realistic timelines and outputs, follow ethical practices, and where students can legitimately publish. I'll also flag common mistakes to avoid. I will then help you guys understanding our approach, a practical student journey, how we guide you from idea to project to paper to publication with a realistic prep timeline and a few quick success stories. And lastly, resources. You'll leave with next steps of free masterclasses, newsletter, and digital platform to keep you moving. We will conclude the session with live Q&A with Sunitra. So without further ado, over to Sunitra.
Thank you so much, Kanashri, for the warm introduction, and thank you for everyone in the audience for tuning into today's session. So let's dive into today's session, which talks about understanding the basics of research. So what is research? Let's begin by breaking down this word that often sounds very intimidating. At its core, research simply means asking a question and finding an answer using a systematic process. Research is not about scientists in labs or PhD scholars trying to publish in big journals. It's just about a mindset which everyone can obtain. For example, if you've ever asked yourself, why do I focus better in the morning than at night? And then you've tracked your study hours or your performance and collected data, that by itself is an example of research. Research basically turns your curiosity into discovery. So you're not guessing, but you're actually using logic, data, and evidence to support your thinking. You can think of it this way. It is trying to find a structured way of exploring your own interests and helping others learn from what you find. Whether you love coding, psychology, or art, you can always do research in any field, and it doesn't have to be STEM oriented. Okay, so sorry, I think I missed a slide. I'm just going to move back one step. So yeah, so from there, we're going to move on to why research in high school, right? So why should you as a high schooler care about research? So there are several reasons as to why research is important, especially at the high school level, right? For one, it builds critical thinking and curiosity. You stop memorizing and you start questioning. This habit actually helps across all subjects, be it math or humanities. Research also shows that you have initiative and academic depth. So universities usually look for a holistic review, meaning that they don't just assess your application based on your grades or your SAT scores, but they look for an entire extracurricular depth as well as intellectual curiosity and initiative. So having a research project, even if it's a small one, it makes you stand out from other applicants. Research work can also strengthen your college applications, as I mentioned. It adds to the activity list. It can be included in your essay writings, and also you can get a lot of letter of recommendation from your research mentors. Research can also create a lot of opportunities. You can submit your research work to science fairs, research competitions, or even summer internships. And finally, research also teaches you critical skills. This is the most important because when you do research, you do a lot of literature review, you do data analysis, you do academic writing, you do a lot of collaboration and teamwork. And all of these real skills, even university students struggle with. So when you do this at a high school level, then you are already ahead of the game. So the bottom line is research shows that you're not just a student who wishes to study, but you're actually a student who can think. All right, so moving on. So what are the different types of research or projects, right? So there isn't one correct way to do research. You can choose what basically fits your style. So some of the common research projects include an empirical study, which in this, it basically involves doing your own experiment and you make direct observations to discover something new. An example here would be like testing whether plants grow faster with classical music versus without music. Another method to do a research project would include database or secondary analysis. What this means is you use data that already exists and you try to find new patterns or insights based on that. For example, you're trying to analyze air quality research data from WHO or NASA, other open databases to study different pollution trends. In literature review, you're basically summarizing and comparing many research papers on one question, and you're trying to identify what's known and what isn't known. An example here would be something like you take 20 different literature research studies on caffeine affecting teenagers' sleep cycle, and you come up with your own review and analysis. There's also an expository and educational project. Here, what you would do is you would write or create something that explains the topic clearly to others. So for example, in this particular instance, it would be making a student guide on chemistry of climate change. Finally, you have the engineering or computing build project. And in this case, this involves designing something new. This can be anything like an app, a robot, or an algorithm, and how you can actually test how well it works. So here, an example would include building a phone app or something that tracks water intake and gives you some sort of personalized hydration alerts. So whatever type of research you choose to do, remember that a good research doesn't have to be some fancy, complicated topic. It all starts with one well-defined question or hypothesis that you choose to solve and get a result. All right, so moving on, how do you start a research project, right? So there's a roadmap on how to get started. So the first step would be to start from a real world problem that you care about. Now, this can be anything as simple as sustainability, screen time, sports performance, social media, anything that you are genuinely finding interest in. So from there, once you choose a topic or idea that you wish to solve, then you move on to the second step where you try to narrow in on the focus and you pick basically one question, one method, and one measurable outcome to address your question. For instance, instead of asking a question, how does internet affect students, you would specifically ask, how does using social media after 9 p.m. affect sleep quality? So in this particular question and method and measurable outcome, it is more specific and not a broad question. The third step would include feasibility. So do you have access to the tools? Do you have the time? Do you have a supervisor or mentor to guide you to the process you need? You can ethically collect all the data. Do you have the possibility to do that? So all of these you do as a part of the feasibility check. So the last step would include defining your success criteria. And this you do so by writing one measurable goal. For example, measuring how screen time after 9 p.m. would affect the quality, and you do like a 1 week survey using a fitness band data. So the best advice I could give here is you want to start small, choose one method, one measurable goal, and don't aim to change the whole world in the first try. Aim to complete something simple and authentic. All right, so moving on to structuring the research paper. So the first step would be to try to find a mentor or a guide who can help you execute your research. So most journals usually require an adult or co-author or supervisor for ethical and academic reasons. Mentors help you in different ways, right? So one, they can help you narrow in on your topic. They can help you avoid mistakes. And finally, mentors can also provide you with letter of recommendation at a later point. So where exactly can you find these mentors? So you can find great mentors who are teachers, professors, subject matter experts who are all available at nearby colleges, schools, professionals in your community. You also have online mentorship programs that's available. So if you look at the different paths to execute a research project, you have basically 3 different paths you can do this. So the first is an independent path. So this path is basically how you would design your own project, and you choose a mentor who does occasional check-ins, right? So this is great for like self-driven students who know what they want, who have a clear goal, and who just need the guidance and help to execute the project. The second type of path to execute the project would include collaboration. So you basically would collaborate with labs, graduate students, or PhD students who are already doing some sort of ongoing projects. So here is where you kind of really learn real research and how that happens. And the third kind of path you can choose is a structured program. So this is more of it offers a structured guidance in terms of timelines and feedback. So some examples of these sort of structured timelines would include Pioneer Academics. I think there's Luminaire Education, and even Let's Unbound has like mentorship guidance to help with any sort of research. So with all these 3 different paths, there are trade-offs in all these different paths, right? So when you choose the independent path, you have great control and creativity in your project. So it is your idea, it's your project, you're just getting guidance and mentorship. So that's when you choose an independent path. If you're looking for collaborations, then there's a lot of depth in research because this is anyway done as a part of the lab or the academy. This is ongoing process. It's more of your learning and your journey and your joint collaboration with them. And then obviously, when you look at the structured programs, these provide more structure and expert support in terms of execution. And there is obviously a cost that is associated with this when you take that into account. So you should choose one that actually matches your confidence as well as your resources. All right. Sorry. So moving on. So what is the process of writing, the structure of writing a paper, right? So when you're writing a paper, where is your project going to be, when is it going to become publishable knowledge? So there's typically structure used for professional journals, okay? There's a certain structure that you would have to follow when you're trying to publish a paper. So the first part is or this first section would include a title and an author. So here you want to keep it very clear and specific, not too long. You want to include your mentor and your co-author if they guided you throughout this project. The second section would include the abstract. The abstract is usually around 150 to 200 words section. It's a mini summary of what you've studied. You would include the why, how, the results, and what the research actually means. In the introduction section, you would explain the background, the problem, what sort of gap exists in the current knowledge, and what the research adds. The fourth section is the methodology section, and this is a very detailed procedure, and you want to include as much detail as possible that someone could actually replicate. So this is the most detailed part of your paper. Then we move on to results. So the results is all your summary and your findings that you put together. Usually this is depicted in the terms of figures, tables, or graphs. And then there's an explanation in terms of words to describe what are your results or your findings. The next section you would include in your research paper would be a discussion where you would interpret your results, what they mean, and what are the limitations and what could be improved. The next section in your research paper would include conclusion. Here you would summarize all your findings in one or two powerful statements. And last but not least, it would include your acknowledgements and your references. These are very important. You want to thank anyone who's helped you through your research project, and you want to list all your sources properly. And always remember to aim for clarity, honesty, and readability. And always remember that a simple, well-structured paper impresses more than complicated jargon. All right. So what are the writing tips for students? So when you are writing a paper, you want to use simple, clear language. So if your friend cannot understand your abstract, you have to simplify it and rewrite it further, right? And make it as simple as possible. You want to support every claim with data or citation. You just don't want to say this happens or that happens. You want to show evidence in terms of graphs or results, in terms of data. You want to show proof and evidence of your findings. You also want to use proper citation. So there are two very common citation rules that's followed in terms of publishing in journals, the APA and the MLA one. The APA is more common for social sciences, psychology, and economics. That's what is followed in terms of citation. And the MLA one is more popular for literature, humanities, and arts. So you can also use citation managers such as Zotero and Mendeley, and these will help to format references in the correct style for your particular research paper. So when you're writing a research paper, you can also utilize various writing tools. Some of the common ones that you would use are Grammarly, which helps in your grammar polishing. You can use Google Docs to track changes or any sort of mentor feedback you want to incorporate. And for data analysis, some of the popular tools or softwares that you could use include Excel, Python, and R. And the key here is to try to get feedback early. Don't wait until you finish writing to get feedback on your work. All right, so moving on to timeline, ethics, and journals, right? So research publication takes time. It is not, it's not a very quick process. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And it takes time, and you want to take as much time to get credible research and results. So here's a breakdown of the timeline. So first, when it comes to ideation and planning, that approximately takes about 1 month. Then you move on to experimenting and data collection. So once you have your idea, you want to execute it, you want to collect your data, and all of these tasks actually take about 2 to 3 months. And then moving on, if you're looking at analysis or writing of all your results and your data, then that could take anywhere from 1 month to a little more than a month, depending on how much data you've actually accumulated. Then from there, it takes about 2 to 4 months to actually submit your research work or your journal. And also peer review is required. So that takes anywhere from 2 to 4 months. Then finally, you have revisions. You have about 2 to 8 weeks. You could have multiple rounds of revision of your work that you've done. So you want to bear in mind all of these timelines as you are trying to execute your research and get it published. So in total, it can take anywhere from 6 to 12 months, all the way from idea to publication. And that's completely normal, because most students who start at the grade 10 or grade 11 in terms of research or publication can actually finish before their college application if they start early and plan correctly. All right. So, what are the alternative or parallel outputs from your research work? So, even if you've done some sort of research and it doesn't reach a journal, so you can still showcase all your research work smartly. So, some of the options to showcase your work include pre-printing, and this is if it's allowed. You can actually upload a draft to an open platform such as an OSF, which is an open science framework. If certain journals actually allow for pre-printing before you actually do that. The other alternative output to your research work is actually to create a poster or a talk. You can present your work in a local science fair, in a club event, or in any sort of school exhibition. You can utilize your research work also towards competitions. You can join research competitions and innovation fairs like the Google Science Fair or Regeneron, which are some of the very popular ones. Your research work can also go towards building your portfolio. You can create like GitHub repository. You can use it for your personal website or your LinkedIn posts, and you can try to summarize your project work. College applications, you can utilize this towards your college applications. In a part of your activities list in your application, you can actually provide the project link, or you can even use DOI, which is basically a digital object identifier to identify your research work or your paper publication. So admissions officers usually love seeing students who take knowledge beyond the classroom and by building and showcasing your research work. So it's very important to get started early and see how you can build on this as you are applying. All right, so moving on to the ethical research practices. So this is very crucial because ethics can actually make or break your credibility. So some of the things that you want to avoid is avoid predatory journals. So what are these predatory journals, right? So these are basically fake, or I would say more like low quality publishers who ask for like large fees and they guarantee publication and things like that. So genuine journals will never guarantee acceptance. They're all peer reviewed first before they accept. So you want to do a proper research to see the journal that you wish to publish in. It's not a predatory one. The second important ethical research practice would include to always take consent, right? When you are doing surveys or interviews or any sort of experiment involving people, you want to have a consent form where people are signing off the consent before that is being done. The other thing to avoid is do not misrepresent or claim a website upload as a publication when you're doing your application. Avoid over reliance on AI tools for your research work. You must still remain as the author of the idea. Passing off any sort of AI generated content as your own is a form of misrepresentation or plagiarism. And then, of course, do not plagiarize. What does plagiarism mean? Plagiarism means you're just basically presenting somebody else's work, their words or their ideas or the data without giving them their own or giving them any sort of credit. So whenever you put any information in your paper, you always want to reference or cite the author as a part of that. Otherwise, it would be considered plagiarizing. Never fabricate or falsify data. It's okay if your hypothesis doesn't work or your initial plan doesn't work. That's all a part of science. But do not falsify data or results. It can just, it can just affect your credibility. If your research needs any sort of advanced or dangerous equipments that you don't have or don't have official access to or training or permission to use, then it's very unethical and unsafe to even try to attempt that. You want to maintain data privacy. Data privacy means you're basically protecting any sort of personal information or sensitive information that you collect from people so that it's not being misused, exposed, or linked back to them without any sort of consent. Do not ignore ethics or approvals. What this means would mean like trying to start or conduct some sort of research, your own research project involving people or animals or sensitive data. All of these have proper guidelines and you would need to obtain proper permission. So make sure you understand and follow the ethical guidelines as you proceed with your research work. And last but not least, again, do make sure that you acknowledge everyone who has helped you. Give them credit. Give credit to everyone who's helped you in your research, even if they're not listed as co-authors. So what does that mean? So you can your mentor or your teacher who guided you, or peers who have helped you collect data, organizations or labs that have helped you to get your equipment, anyone who's offered any sort of feedback or proofreading or funding support. All of these sort of areas would require some sort of acknowledgement. All right. So where can you publish now that you've actually done some sort of a research work and you want to publish your research, right? So there are several journals where you can actually publish high school research work for high school students. So some of the credible student-friendly journals include the JEI, which is the Journal of Emerging Investigators. They are highly focused in the biology, chemistry, physics, environmental sciences. These were founded by Harvard grad students. It's a very nice journal to publish in. You have the STEM Fellowship Journal. It's ideal for like data science or computational research. JSR is another popular one, Journal of Student Research. This covers STEM, social sciences, and humanities. The Journal of High School Sciences. This is again STEM along with the arts journal, very famous for that. You can utilize that to publish any sort of research work. The Concord Review, this is actually one of the world's best journal when it comes to any sort of history or humanities papers. Curio Academic Journal, this is a student-led journal and it's open for all subjects. So that's a good one to also apply to. So check journals guidelines before you submit them. Each one has their own specific word limits and formatting rules. Make sure you look into all that before you actually submit your research work. Okay, so moving on. So let's look at a few examples of high school research that made it to publication. So we have one from the Journal of Emerging Investigators, which is a lung cancer AI-based diagnosis for early cancer detection. In the Journal of Student Research, there was a very nice publication which talks about the strategic swinging model in baseball, sports related. The Journal of High School Science, there was a research that was published on dark matter research study. Each of these different research work all started with one small, clear, testable question. And eventually, whoever was working on it, it grew into months of consistent work, which eventually got into a publication. So finally, what are the common mistakes that students make when it comes to research or publication, right? One of the most common ones is picking a topic that's either too broad or too vague. Plagiarism is a big no. It's considered as a serious ethical and academic offense. It's dishonest and it damages credibility, as I had mentioned before. So you, at all costs, you want to avoid plagiarism. Submitting to predatory journals, I already talked about that. You want to choose a peer-reviewed journal when you are submitting your research work. Ignoring mentors' advice. So keep in mind, mentors have the experience, they have the knowledge, they've already done publications, they know about journals. So always do try to implement and make changes based on their advice. The last one would include rushing before you're ready, right? So you may be on a timeline, you don't want to rush your work. Remember, the quality of your research paper is more important than the speed. So do not take any form of shortcuts to submit your work. You take your time and make sure that the data is credible and the research is reliable. So my key takeaway from today's presentation is to start small and to remember that every big idea begins with a question. publishing before you graduate is not about fame. It's all about learning and thinking to be a creator, not just being like a student, right? So if you can do all that, then you'll not only strengthen your college applications, but you'll be able to also build habits that last for a lifetime. So with that in mind, I would like to hand off the presentation to Kanushri.
Thank you so much, Sanitra, for laying the foundations so clearly. I want to zoom out and show why strong students still feel stuck. On the left, we begin with understand the student, interest, personality, strength. But in the middle, the process gets fuzzy and the outcomes on the right become question marks. Families typically see only a few career options. Applications are complex and differ by country, college, and major. And there is no single recipe to a top university. What works for one student won't work for another. Here's where our admissions and research guidance changes the outcome. Focus and spike, we turn loose interest into a focused research question, giving students a clear academic spike that stands out. Rigor and credibility, mentorship, IRB ethics where it is where needed, proper methods, and I am RAT writing show college level rigor, not just busy work. Tangible outputs, drafts, posters, code, notebooks, preprints, or journal submissions become evidence reviewers can see and verify. So, the mentor is structured exploration with guidance, turning interest into validated work and clear milestones and eventual admissions. We provide personalized pathway for student success. Building on that, here's how we remove the question marks with a structured, personalized pathway. On the left is our starting point, a deep understanding of the student, interest, personality, learning style, and constraints. Process, which is in the center, what we do step by step. So, psychometric and interest mapping to identify fit areas and eliminate random trial and error. College counseling and major mapping, shortlists that align with strengths, budget, geography, and outcomes. Profile and skill building. This is where research guidance uh, lives, like lives, like topic discovery, uh, mentor pairing, ethics, and I am RAT writing, competition plans, portfolios, and public outputs. Application and admission guidance, we translate the research journey into compelling supplements, activities list, and LORs. We prep interviews to discuss methods, results, and limitations with confidence. Output, which is on the right, measurable results. So, clear, realistic outcomes, example, admissions to a best fit program like UCLA Environmental Science with a documented spike in research and impact. I like to summarize this slide with our ethos. It takes a village to raise a child. We provide the coordinated village, mentors, editors, counselors, and admissions specialists. So students move from interest to credible research to strong applications and to right fit admits. Let me tie the whole program together for you. So at College Crest, we have learned that a perfect score is helpful, but it won't by itself unlock a dream admit. What actually wins is a coherent story built across three pillars, and we deliver all three under one roof. First, academics and test prep. We map out SAT or PSAT strategy, AP choices, and course rigor. So scores rise predictably and transcripts align with the major a student cares about. Think of this as building the academic runway. Secondly, profile building, the part most families struggle to structure. Here we turn genuine interest into evidence of impact. Leadership in clubs and teams, meaningful community work, passion projects, and critically, mentor guided research. Students choose a focused question, learn the IMRAD model, collect or analyze data appropriately, and produce real outputs. A poster, a preprint, sometimes a journal submission or conference showcase. That research becomes the bridge between I'm interested in X and here's what I've actually done in X. Third, admission preparation. Once the academics and experiences are in place, we help students select universities that fit and we translate their journey, especially the research into compelling personal statements and supplements. We coach teachers on the angle of recommendations and we rehearse interviews so students can speak confidently about their methods, results, and learning. It's a one stop personalized roadmap that runs 1 to 4 years depending on when a student joins. A quick example, one student came in during grade 10, leveled up in coding, ran mentored workshops, scored a 1550, published a short technical book, won a couple of comms, and ultimately received an offer from UIUC. The same pattern holds beyond CS. Structured skills, authentic research outputs, and a clear narrative together create a stronger application. That's the College Crest program in action. And it's how we help students turn potentials into offers. Well, I would like to share a few success stories with you. These are real students and their real journeys. Okay. Here's a quick story that shows how the pieces come together. So this student joined us in grade 10 with a clear love for math. We built a rigorous plan, APs that matched his strengths, targeted SAT prep, and he delivered a 1550. The test scores were just the start. With mentor guidance, he took on a real research question, worked through the IMRAD structure, and turned his findings into a paper and poster. That experience gave him specific language for essays and interviews, methods used, data challenges, and what he'd do next. So outside the classroom, he didn't chase random activities, he built depth. He competed nationally in basketball, used that platform for community impact, co founding a small NGO to run book and food security drives. He also kept a creative thread alive as a solo singer, performing at charity events and contributing to his school choir. When it came time to apply, we wove these strands into a single narrative, analytical strength proven through research, leadership and resilience shown through sport and service, and a human voice through music. That authentic story, supported by concrete outputs and recommendations, helped him earn a place at Dartmouth. The takeaway, strong applications aren't built on one spike. They are built on coherence. Research made his academics tangible, and the rest of his profile made the person behind the numbers unforgettable. Let me share another quick story. This time about a student who earned admission in Rice University with a major leadership scholarship. She didn't start with a perfect resume. What she did have was consistent growth. In school, she moved from perfect to house captain. Small steps that showed reliability, ownership, and to lead peers. That same arc continued in Model United Nations. First, a delegate, then press secretary, communications head, and eventually chairperson. Each role gave her receipts, outcomes she could quantify, and mentors who could vouch for her. When we mapped her application strategy, we aligned her track record with Rice's values and steered her towards the Women in Leadership Scholarship. Her essays connected the dots: leadership that serves, not just titles, communication that builds team, and a plan to scale those skills in college. Academically, she was solid, but it was the coherence of her profile, leadership across school and MUN, plus meaningful community work that elevated her. We packaged that story with intentional recommender prompts, crisp activity descriptions that showed impact over hours, and a focused why Rise that named labs courses and campus groups she strengthened. Result, admission to RISE and a substantial scholarship. Proof that when your academics, leadership, and narrative point in the same direction, you don't just get in, you get funded. All right. Well, so our next webinar is going to be about the SAT game. All right, I would like to quickly share this important link with you. Please head over to your chat box to save it. All right. And you can also do your SAT diagnostic test. You can scan the barcode. All right, so that would be it for today's session. I hope it was a meaningful session for you all. And we have such webinars every weekend. And we look forward to see you again next weekend. Thank you so much, everyone.